It's dead.
Okay, so we're ready to go. So welcome everybody to this March meeting of the RTC. On the item 2 is a health and safety message, which is follow staff members and run. Or if there's an earthquake, drop, cover and hold. The basic message in there. Toilets are out the door, down the stairs and on the right if you require those. And we will move on to our karakia, which you'll find on page 4. Follow along, please.
Wakatoksi hau ki te uru, wakatoksi hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā tara tara ki tā, kia I aki ana te atakura, e tio, e uka, e ahu, tuturi o witi wakamawa kia tina, huie, taiki.
Thank you very much. Apologies, we have one from Councillor Deinhoven, and I have here that Councillor Chong will be attending in his behalf, but he's not here yet. Are there any other apologies?
Chair, there's significant roadworks between between Inglewood and Stratford, so hopefully Councillor Chong is
on his way.
Okay.
Is that Walker Kotahi?
No. Careful where you're sitting there, Phil.
Chair, I believe the medium barriers are being installed in a couple of locations.
Okay. Good to see safety improvements.
Yes.
Could I have a mover that the apologies be accepted, please? Councillor Cloak, seconded Mayor Volsky. All in favour, please say aye. Thank you. We do have one addition to the agenda. It came in late to us and I was happy to accept it, and it is a presentation from Eddie, who is going to speak to us regarding this road safety issue. So Eddie, if you'd like to come forward, we'll give you 10 minutes.
Lovely, thank you very much.
To include some question time at the end, if you would like. Other than that, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, thank you very much, first of all, for allowing me to come in today, especially last minute. Much appreciated. The basic concern here is that driving into Oakura from both directions, the speed limit drops from 100 to 50 right away, and you're going through a couple areas that are very, very dangerous, particularly the Corbett Park, which is at the bottom of a dip, and you've got traffic coming in at 100 Ks from both directions. You've also got a marae right there, entrance, and then you've also got a street across the street from Corbett Park with traffic coming in. There have been fatalities there, especially particularly a police officer not too long ago. From what I understand, went out of control and hit the bridge or something and it's passed. There is a significant amount of traffic in Corbett Park on a daily basis, but particularly on the weekends when you get football, rugby. On Mondays, there's touch rugby. The parking's full all the way to the road. Sometimes people even park up on 45. So I'm here to plea and petition that the speed limit is moved further back up the hill to make it more common sense. Again, if we were to move the speed limit to 50, just maybe 200-300 meters up the hill, would alleviate that problem, because right now you've got cars zooming down the hill and then leaving Oakura zooming down the hill, and they're meeting right at the entrance to Oakura Park is actually right at the bottom of the hill. Anybody that I have approached about this has told me stories of people almost getting hit, cars having to drive off the road because unfortunately some New Zealand drivers are very impatient. And so you may be driving a little slower to make a turn into Corbett Park from either direction, but ultimately some Yahoo is going to try to pass you up, go around you, and or honk at you because you're slowing down a turn when they're wanting to go 100. So it is just crazy, crazy dangerous. And I understand that it's been brought up before, but I'm going to try to push as hard as I can, because I personally haven't been hit there, but I've seen enough, and I've got young kids that are going to be driving in the next few years that it scares the hell out of me. Now on the other end of town, coming into from the south end, the speed limit drops from 100 to 50 right at the intersection of Wairau Road, which is an area that, if you're familiar with Oakura, it's a main road that goes east up. It used to be all farmlands, but now there's probably about 400 houses up there, and it's the only way to get to the beach and into the village is crossing Wairau Road. Now, unfortunately, it goes from 100 to 50 right at that intersection. Super dangerous. Again, I've seen kids trying to cross on their bikes or walking or whatever, almost getting hit. I've got a good friend of mine, Paul Cunningham. He was T-boned at that intersection. About, I think, from my understanding, about 7 years ago as well. Somebody was killed on a tractor there. Somebody was trying to pass somebody around to avoid slowing down and hit the tractor, flipped it over and killed the farmer. So I see that on a daily basis because I live up Wairau Road and I see how crazy people drive through there. And it's almost negligible to have the speed limit changed right at the intersection from 100 to 50 when you're actually in the village at that point. I know that they had changed it from the bottom of the dip where it changed to 50 to the top of the dip there. That's only like maybe 100 meters. It should have been just put back 300-400 meters because you still have a major intersection that goes from the east down to the beach. And so very, very dangerous. And that's really all I wanted to be here, come here and make everybody aware. And I think anybody that's been there would agree. It's almost, you would, if you don't agree, it would almost like, what is this person thinking, right? It's crazy not that it hasn't happened yet. And so I'm here to ask you guys for your help. If anybody has any questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Mayor Nixon.
Thanks, Eddie. Thanks for bringing that along. You won't get an argument from me on it. I mean, it's out of my patch, but I do drive that piece of road quite a bit.
Right.
And so, yeah, I agree with what you're suggesting because people do tend to look at, now I've got to go 50. So I'm going to, when I see that sign, I'm going to slow down from 100 to 50. Well, they won't just jump on their brakes. So they will be still going fast. So you've said about moving the signs out further. Would you also see that what would possibly help it was if there was a reduction, say, to 70, maybe half a K further out again, so that they're actually dropping in speed coming into it. They're not getting to 50 and hitting the brakes. Your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I mean, anytime you start slowing down coming into a highly populated area would help. I mean, if you go for a little bit further back coming from the south side, you got the Kaitaki golf course there, which again, a lot of traffic in and out. I think dropping it to 70 just before hitting the golf course, so actually people can get in and out a little safer. That at least there is kind of a straightaway. On the Corbett Park side, you're coming off a curve into a dip, and then you've got people coming out from all directions. There's a marae there's Corbett Park, and then there's a Virginia Street. And so it is, and they're about to build 6 new houses on Virginia Street here in the next year and a half. So super, yeah. But to answer your question, absolutely. Anytime you can do that. I mean, I would hope that we could get the speed limit moved back to the top of the hill on the Corbett side, so that when the cars are coming down, they're forced to slow down to a reasonable speed, so people can actually get out. Because even myself, sometimes, like, I can't get out when it's rush hour, and sometimes you push it and somebody misses you by this, because they speed up to try to scare you because you went out. So it's nuts. But yes, absolutely.
Oh, that's good. A good friend of mine was actually hit there about 18 months ago, and he still hasn't got back to work.
Right.
With injuries from that accident. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that and for your support.
Questions?
Yeah, thank you, Eddie. This isn't the first time this committee's heard a presentation from a group out there. Are you supported by other people in the community or the community board?
I am. I've got a petition that I just started last week. I've already got 230 signatures. Probably, I'm hoping that we'll get well over 1,000 in just the next 2 or 3 weeks. It's just started, so it's gaining traction. I have spoken to the Kentucky Community Board, and they are fully in support of it, as well as I did talk to David McLeod briefly, and he said he hadn't heard much complaining about it, but he would certainly support it because he understands, just like you guys have heard before a little bit, and that it's an issue.
Okay.
There was some time ago, just an add-on, Linda, there was a safety audit carried out probably 4, 5, probably 6 years ago. And there was quite a few changes to the dynamics of a walker at that time. And exactly what Eddie was talking about, the speed limits were changed and everything. So it might pay to refer back to that safety audit at that time.
Mrs. Stewart?
Just a comment. I think you've just already engaged with my colleague Lisa Moldy.
Yes.
And I would just encourage you to connect and share contact details. Also, just in terms of advocacy and approaches, it sounds like you're already making the right moves, certainly to the local MP, noting that our work is guided by both the government policy statement and the new setting of speed limits rules. So we are required to give effect to both of those. So do have some constraints about what we can and can't do under them. So as well as working with NZTA as the road controlling authority for the state highway, we do have to give effect to both the rule and the GPS. So just noting that there'll be operational things that we may be able to do, but for some of the changes that you're seeking advocacy to both Ministry of Transport and your MP might be the best way to give effect.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chong?
Yes, are you also going to come to Newcastle District Council, one of the council meetings?
I would love to. Yeah, I mean, as much support as we can get.
Give you more clout the other councillors.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If you, I'd love to find out when the next meeting is and make arrangements to be there. Okay, that would be fantastic.
Okay,
yeah, because there's a lot of people being affected. To me, it baffles the mind that it hasn't happened already, but I guess for whatever reason it hasn't. And
Okay, thank you. Anything further? Take a note of. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you very much, everybody, for your time, and I definitely would love to connect. And
Councillor Chong will follow up with the next meeting.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you very much. I will move on to item 5 on the agenda, which is the confirmation of the minutes of the Regional Transport Committee. The first recommendation first of all, are there any additions, alterations with regard to that?
Yeah.
Mayor Volsky?
Yeah, thank you. On the minutes themselves, in the very first point there, within the minutes, the action was confirmation of the minutes from the previous meeting, which is listed there as the 15th of September. It was actually the 12th of September. And in 1A and 1B, it makes reference to the 15th as well. Again, they were both cases, should be the 12th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we just make that alteration.
Could you observe it?
And just while I've got you, the second recommendation, which you haven't put yet, the recommendation B regarding noting the unconfirmed minutes that have been circulated, it references the meeting of the 12th of September and the 18th of April. Both of those were done at the meeting in December. So those should be taken out and should be replaced with the meeting of the 5th of December. And that recommendation just hasn't been updated.
Those two meetings were done at
Thank you, Chair. We'll tidy that up.
Yeah, thank you.
Apologies.
Yeah.
Apologies for that.
Other than that, they're fantastic. Happy to move them with those amendments.
Okay, so with those,
I'll second it, Chair.
and seconded Councillor Cloak, in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. The next item on the agenda, item 6, is receipt of the minutes of the RTC, the Road Transport Advisory Group, from the 20th of February on page 10. And the recommendation is that we receive the unconfirmed minutes from that group. I have a mover for those.
I'll move then, Chair, because everyone else is asleep.
And seconded by Mayor Nixon. Are there any comments, queries with regard to the RTAG minutes?
Just a question, under road safety, B refers to the State Highway 3 Waitara Bell Block speed limit. But the last line there's been very strong early community feedback on it staying at 80k. And I think that feedback closes today, doesn't it?
Today.
Yes, 5 p.m. today, submissions closed.
And have we got any indications, or probably a question for Mrs. Stewart, has we got indications that the community is stuck true to this? This is a couple of weeks old. Is there lobbying to reverse it and take it back to 100? It seems to be lobbying to say leave it at 80.
I can't comment on the overall sentiment that we've got so far. We do get updates on it, but I'm not in a position to share those until it closes. But right across the whole country, there's been both support for reverting back to 100 and in the community's support to retain lower speeds. So we just need to look at the actual balance once it closes. So I can't answer that one, I'm afraid.
Then we have put a submission in.
Yes, we did.
You'll notice that through your comments and Councillor Cloakes, we have got a submission. We will be passing at this meeting to send by 5 o'clock tonight.
I just hope that the advocates for reverting it back to 100k are also advocates for reverting it back to the same accident rate that used to occur there. I really strongly believe it needs to stay at 80k.
Okay.
Just a question through the chair to Mr. Nixon over there, Mayor Nixon. On page 14, on SB, the public submissions, the bylaws, is there any update on that? You had your hearings and everything on the 25th of February. Have you got any updates? Is that all going through, or is there? Probably should have asked you.
Sorry, I'm just catching up on that one.
Page 14.
Under STDC.
Yep. Yeah, down the bottom paragraph of FTDC. FTDC. Oh no, Stratford, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry.
Sorry, wasn't quite with you, sorry.
Sorry, I want to be pointing the finger.
Mr. Bowden's moved up.
We point the finger.
Thank you, Chair. I think the member's in the wrong district. I think.
I was looking for the. Oh, I won't say it.
Thank you, Mr. Bowden. You'd like to answer it?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Through you, the 3 bylaws, we had a hearing and deliberations meeting at the end of February, I think it was, and thankfully the bylaws as amended were endorsed at Tuesday's ordinary meeting of council. So, and they will take effect from the 1st of May.
Thank you. Nothing further from those?
No, I've just got another question though to the TRC on the national ticketing service. I see that's been put back to 2026. I thought we were closer than that. Through the chair to Mike.
Chair, there are trials going on down South Canterbury region, and those trials need to go through the completion of the identifying the pluses and minuses of the system, and then what needs to be rectified before it gets rolled out on a wider basis. Officially, we're still looking at the later in this year. Unofficially, I'd say we're probably looking at some delays. Would be my bet at this stage.
No. Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. We can move on to the next item, which is item 7, a Kiwi Rail presentation. We do have Kiwi Rail on Zoom. They're going to present, and I do believe they are going to share their presentation with the committee afterwards. So with that, I think Ben is online. Welcome, Ben.
Kia ora.
Whether Lisa is with you or not, I'm not too sure, but The floor is yours. Thank you very much for attending.
Cool, thank you. I've just got a challenge at the moment with my video's dropped off, but I'll have a go at sharing my screen and getting this presentation up. Can you see that?
Yes, we have it. Thank you.
Awesome. So firstly, my name is Ben Johnston. I'm our Manager of Government Investment at KiwiRail. A lot of my focus is on our rail network investment program and infrastructure funding. We also may be joined later by Alan Piper in our customer and growth team, and Lisa, who also works in my team as the Group General Manager. So this presentation that we've prepared is largely infrastructure focused, and if Alan is able to join, then he'll be able to share any specific freight insights around hubs and current volumes in the region. So what we'll cover today is firstly just a little bit of a recap. I'm not sure how familiar you all are around how the actual ARNIP framework works, the progress that we've achieved through our inaugural ARNIP over the previous few years, and some of the key challenges that we've got moving forward. Then we have a specific snapshot there around the Taranaki region, what we've completed in FY24, so the last financial year, and then we've got a little bit to cover around where we are with our what we call ARNIP 2, so that's our 2024 to 27 infrastructure program, and what that means for your region. So firstly there, the framework that we're in is similar to the national NLTP process. I guess the difference that we have is that we also have a New Zealand rail plan. But currently under that framework, that rail plan hasn't been updated since 2021. So at the moment, our key guiding document, like yourselves, is really through the government policy statement on land transport 2024. Currently, we're predominantly funded through the Crown, but we do collect track user charges that also contribute to the NLTF and our funding sources there. So firstly, a previous ARNIP, it was a big change for KiwiRail in terms of the frameworks applied for how we built up programs, a real significant process with NZTA around demonstrating how we get value for money from the program with good asset management practice. And it was also a very significant uplift in the quantum of work that we were able to start delivering. As a quick example of that, from FY22 to FY23, in some instances for our renewals, we were starting to deliver 80 to 100% more year on year. So a really big uplift there. A key positive for us through the previous ARNIP was over that 3-year period, we actually delivered the program within 3% of the targeted budget. That excludes some of the major weather events that we had on the east coast and Northland, but particularly something that KiwiRail's very proud of, given we did have a slower start than planned as well in that first year. On the back of that investment, we've seen our track quality index improve up to 100% on our priority routes of the network. We define our priority routes. It's largely the spine of the network where most of the volume is carried, and also when there can be passenger services also. Our big focus and continued focus is really around just maintenance and renewals. There isn't a significant improvement program that we're delivering. So as we can see there, we've delivered 97% of our condition 5 rail that was identified at the start of that program. And similarly, we've completed most of our condition 5 sleepers.
Ben, if I could just interrupt briefly,
Yeah,
there's a presentation icon, I think they told me, just by the volume control. If you push it at your end, and then we'll be able to follow along with the slides. We're still
can you not see the next slide?
No, we're sitting on the introduction, the first one at the stage.
All right, let's try this.
They told me there's
Bottom
right-hand corner, there's the button by the volume
Can you see
control.
that?
No, we're still on the same slide.
Okay.
If you go down to the bottom of the screen,
Yeah.
keep going along next to by the volume ones. Keep going to
Yes.
the right.
Yeah.
With your icon, with your little mousey thing. Keep tracking right, and it's just by that fourth icon down and along to the right.
I'm not too sure. I'm on the browser view rather than an app, if that makes a difference.
Okay, we're just seeing the screen as you can and where your mouse is wiggling around.
I see. Okay. Can you see the presentation there?
Yes, we can. We can see another slide.
Yeah,
That's it. That's the one.
Cool. Maybe I'll just zoom in here and see how we go.
Okay.
No, if you push that button icon you had before.
That one, yep.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Can see that in the progress achieved slide.
We're on an investment program slide at the moment, which is your third one. If you click it again, it might.
Did you want to have a go at sharing the presentation, Natasha? I can't seem to get that sorted out, sorry. Well, I can try something else. And I'll share my entire screen and see what happens.
Yeah, there you go.
Right.
Yep, you have it now. Oh, might be Marie changing at this end. If you just tell when to flick through the sides,
Yes, sweet.
I'm happy to do it from this end.
Cool, we'll try that. So can you jump to the next slide, please? Awesome.
Progress achieved.
Yeah, so this is just what we were running through there. Apologies for that.
Okay.
We're normally on Teams on this end. Yes, so our program is very focused around delivering, I guess, the highest critical renewals and maintenance. Again, there's not a significant improvements program that we currently have. And as you'll see later in the presentation, we're sort of not at the point where all of our condition 5 assets are addressed. They continue to deteriorate, and there's still a decent backlog of assets that we have to renew and will continue to renew over the next decade. Also, through the first ARNIP, we successfully delivered $85 million in our recovery and repair works, again, largely in Northland and the East Coast. And to deliver that significant ramp up in activity, we recruited 339 staff. Of those, where we were a little bit slower than planned was really we have a lot of technical resources like signalling that were challenging and required international recruitments, and we're competing with the overseas market on getting those. And even once we've got them, it still takes many years to get them fully up to speed with how we operate. Next slide, please. So the big challenges that we've identified as we've gone through that first 3 years is the first one there around the global context. I mean, it does apply to everyone, but we are producing or we're procuring long lead items, many materials that come from overseas. Like we have turnouts that come from Australia. We also have some major plant that's being built in the likes of Austria. So very close to everything that's been going on in Europe. We've had a continued uncertainty in funding for our overdue renewals. So currently through the first ARNT, we're working on a 3-year funding commitment through the end of FY24. Currently in this program, we have a funding commitment through to FY25, and there's some work underway to extend that out to FY27 with the Minister of Transport. Climate change and unexpected weather events have impacted us a lot over the last 3 years, not only in the major weather event, as mentioned previously, but we've also seen about a 30% increase in just the general incidence allowance. So that's been getting chewed up a lot quicker. And also, just having the quantum of overdue renewals naturally means in a lot of areas of the network, we're having to be more reactive. We want to get to that proactive state where we are doing preventive maintenance, renewing assets on time, but it's not something that can happen overnight for us. There's a significant amount of investment and work for us to get into that position. And a large competition for resources, again, that can be attributed to some of the global market and a lot of the major infrastructure projects that are occurring in Australia, but also just internally at KiwiRail as well. So we have a lot of major metro improvement projects that are occurring in Auckland and Wellington, and often they're also drawing on the same resources that we're using to deliver the national programs. Next slide, please. And another one too. So just in the in FY24, on screen here, that's not all of the work that we've completed, but these are a quick sum of some of the major renewals that we've completed. So a big focus has been on track and re-sleepering. One of our major turnouts has been replaced, and then we have civils projects and formation and drainage and one level crossing that's been completed. That's complemented in a lot of cases by minor renewals and extensive maintenance programs. And given our limited funding, I guess we're prioritising right across the country based on, largely based on asset needs and also where we have high freight and passenger volumes.
Ben, can I just disturb you there, please?
Yeah,
one turnout replacement. What is a turnout, please?
Yeah, very good question. A turnout is basically the piece of track that allows a train to switch to a new route. So it's sort of like the fork in the road. If that makes sense.
Thank you. I would have called it the points back in the day. Is that right?
Yeah. Also called points. Cool. And yeah, please feel free to stop me at any point if you need. Pretty flexible on that. Next slide, please. So through our ARNTs, we also have a quite extensive list of key performance indicators that we're tracking. Here is just a small subset of those. So the first one there is around temporary speed restrictions. That's the equivalent for us of effectively roadworks where the trains need to slow down. That can be done for all sorts of reasons. It can be done because of a recent inspection has identified an issue with rail wear is a common one. So in that flags it needs to be renewed. What we've also found through the previous ARNIP is there's a significant amount of speed restrictions that get put in place because of the new quantum of work we're delivering. And some of that we've been awaiting our new plant to come in from overseas to actually be able to lift that capacity. So we have machines that we've been procuring called tampers, and they pack the ballast underneath the rails and sleepers to stabilize the track. And once that's complete, then we can be operating more along our line speeds. And so the route which heads from Martin right through to New Plymouth, that's classified in our ARNIP as a secondary route, and that's achieved. So everywhere across the network, we have targets that are set in minutes, which more or less set travel time expectations, and that route through to New Plymouth has been achieving those travel time expectations. We also have track quality index. It's quite a technical measure, but it's a long-term measure of overall network condition. And again, we've achieved that in the Taranaki route, which is very positive. We also have heat 40s. What that means in practice is it's a 40-kilometre speed restriction that we put in place when the rail head gets above a certain temperature. I think it's around 40 to 45 degrees. So it's more of a seasonal issue. But when those restrictions are in place, then it means that we're slowing our locomotives down. Ideally, we want to be slowing them down less because it also impacts staff utilisation, our overall efficiency of movements, and also things like fuel burn. And then we also report on our freight volumes, which we measure in net tonne kilometres. Any questions on anything on this slide?
Councillor Chong has one.
Cool.
Yeah, the previous slide. You've got those dotted areas which obviously are rails that are unused now, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So what are you doing with that? Is that predominantly, are you giving that back to or allowing councils to look at that? I mean, the potential to allow councils to look at that for tourism operators, or are they just a no-go area? I know Wongamonga is a good example, but all the other areas where, or even just very light passenger rail as far as the converted bus on these systems or something like that. Not large trains, because obviously the lighter rail is a hell of a lot less maintenance because you haven't got the tonnage on them.
Yeah. So currently, what we call those is mothballed rather than closed. So when we close a line, we actually rip up all of the assets to remove different structures and actually physically remove the rail. When we mothball, I guess we're maintaining option value in that line and doing some general maintenance. Also, things like bridge inspections and things will still occur given the proximity of our land to neighbouring properties. In some cases, yes, we have ended up with different different tourism-focused businesses and things that end up operating in some of those mothballed lines, and Kiwirail certainly continues to look at that. But currently, we haven't been in a position where we've been looking at formally closing that line. In some cases, there has been investigations to reopen lines as well. That's not going to occur in the short term with our funding constraints, but something that we continue to look at. Often, too, when these lines have been mothballed for a period of time, there becomes a significant upfront capital investment that's needed to get it in a operational state again.
So just to carry on your last statement, as I said, if you put a very light transport on, such as the weight of 3 or 4 tonnes just for passenger movement. Do they need a significant upgrade? Because they were always upgraded for thousands of tonnes, to be back online. Or is there different gradings for tonnage?
Yes, so most of our line is 18 tonne. I'm personally not familiar with the axle load that was on that line. Generally, our lowest axle load that we operate is around, I think, 14.3 tonne axle load. Certainly, the lower the tonnage, it does mean that you can generally operate things cheaper, but then also QRL is looking at how we standardise our fleet nationally. And as I spoke around previously, then say we have our tamping equipment and we have our track evaluation cars and all of these other assets that have a decent axle load in their own right to even be able to go out and inspect those assets. So it's very, it would need a specific investigation, I guess, with the rolling stock that would look to apply. But in some cases, even if it is, say, lightweight rail, that rail may have rusted out, so still not be fit for purpose anyhow.
Thank you.
Cool. Just here's an example of some of the work that we've been doing through our ARNIP. So here's a bridge near Maxwell and a quick comparison of before and after. A lot of the work that we've been doing on our structures program is around timber replacement. And then here we can see the river protection work that we've included. So a lot of this work is really around resilience when there can be, I guess, a significant weather event and avoiding outages where we can. Cool. 2 slides, please. Thanks. Here is just a quick overview of our ARNIP, which is in progress. So this is, our ARNIP has actually been approved and is currently published on QRL's website. So this is a snippet from that. But then also, as I mentioned, currently we still only have that overall funding approval in this activity class through the end of this financial year. So there's still some work to be done there. But what we've intended to do is, through this ARNIP, is to sort of continue the momentum that we've made and continue to step up the level of renewals and maintenance to build back reliability and resilience in the assets. So a 487 mil program of maintenance operations spend nationally, 890 mil renewals, and as I said, a relatively modest improvements program. So 62 million there, and a lot of that is focused on yards. That's where we can get a lot of our operational end-to-end savings, and then some other specific items that we've investigated through ARNIP 1, such as Otira Tunnel in the South Island. So benefits-wise, it's all around building confidence, I guess, with our customers around us delivering consistently, reliably, and delivering all of their freight on time. And that's what we need to do, or what our customers have told us that we need to do for them to use more rail. Also, just building on ARNIP 1 as well, a big focus has been around asset management maturity. We've had independent asset management expert consultants come in at the start of ARNIP and also at the end of it as we head into ARNIP 2. And we've seen some real progress there. So we're trying to move to a much better standard. Again, the other benefits are really around improved safety, reduced unplanned outages, reduction in speed restrictions across the network. But all the economic benefit comes from increased volumes on the network. Next slide, please. I won't dwell on this one too much. It's not specific to your region, but also within our ARNIP, we have we access that public transport infrastructure activity class. But currently we do that in the Auckland and Wellington metro programs. So we've just included a snippet there for completeness.
On that topic, Ben, our community raises the issues of passenger transport and train services. Does Kiwi Rail have any plans for passenger transport services?
Yeah.
And the second part of that is, if there are barriers to providing that service, what would they be?
Cool. Great question. Our immediate focus on passenger services is around the continued operation of the existing ones. So recently, might not even be recent now, but we've had that Te Huia service, which goes from Hamilton through to Auckland, and also the Capital Connection from Palmerston North to Wellington. Kiwi Rail itself, we aren't positioning as directly pushing forward all of the passenger rail, but certainly when it comes up and investigations are funded, Kiwi Rail is keen to be involved as a participant through those discussions and investigations, and we've done that previously.
How would we get involved in those discussions?
Yeah, I guess it's if you were effectively proposing and funding an investigation for community rail, then certainly it's around just reaching out someone like myself or anyone in the team. We can put you in the right people who can then look at supporting any business case that's been put forward. But currently, Kiwi Rail doesn't have any funding from our services business or from the infrastructure business to directly push these ourselves.
Is that something that's regarding the funding that could be pushed from this end? Approaches made to the right people on that?
Yeah.
Guidance with that?
Yeah, it has been previously, and was getting more of a push under the previous government, but we haven't seen a recent pursuit of sort of national interregional passenger rail strategies. Haven't been a topic of importance from the government currently. So where it's really been around is around renewals and maintenance and reliability in the sort of the busiest areas of the network. So really around building efficiency where we're currently operating.
Thank you.
I've got a question, just under the key benefits, item number 4, you mentioned greater value for money. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, good question. So one of our ways, I guess, a lot of our value for money can be tied back to around the economic benefits. So we're trying to maximize that through increased volumes. Another way that we're doing it is around measuring some of our procurements. Are we getting good competitive tendering through all of our external contracts, which we apply, which we abide by the government procurement rules. Another example of that, with our efficiency and productivity push that we have, we're creating our own internal benchmarking, also looking at external benchmarking, and effectively we're trying to drive down the overall labour cost and delivery rates. Another way that we're looking at it is through better use of plant. So we had an example where we used some machinery called panel lifters, and they effectively allow you to more or less build the rail and sleepers off the side of the track, and then use these panel lifters to then go and install it. So on a value for money sense, that allows you to not be disrupting ongoing services. There's big productivity benefits of just being able to get stuck in through an extended period of time and construct that and install it. So it's very much for us around enabling freight volumes and efficiency and product.
Thank you. Councillor Chong, I think, has another question.
Yeah. Just carrying on from the question about looking at passenger rail.
Yeah.
Just for example, I'm just talking about within our New Plymouth area, and not using the large assets or engines that you have, but having a lot smaller that I don't think is in use in New Zealand, just within the city, so not between towns, just within the city, because we've got a line that only gets used twice a day. Has anyone come to you with an idea like that, or has it ever been used within New Zealand? So we're talking about basically the weight of maybe like a bendy bus converted onto the rail. So there's no weight and it's only for passengers. And it's on a rail that's very rarely used, but it would benefit the city increasingly. So it could be co-run with a CCO or something within the council, using your lines that are hardly used. Has that ever been approached by any other region?
Sorry, I seem to be having reconnect. My screen keeps disconnecting. I'm personally not familiar with that approach on any other councils. It's really been more around dedicated assets, more like that are used already in metros, interregional.
Would you be interested in an idea like that?
I can certainly raise it to. Sorry, I have no idea why this is doing this, but I can certainly raise it to the right people internally. And again, even with say light rail and low used lines, there is still generally a lot of other requirements that we have on the network when there are passenger services operating. So they do require overall a much better asset condition than we apply when we have just sole freight lines.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. So here we've just included a snippet of our asset condition actually in your region. As you can see there, the red are effectively our poor condition assets. The numbers there are actually the kilometres. So what we're saying is there's 28 kilometres of rail which is in condition 5 currently. So that's very much our target. Apologies. That's very much our target focus of this ARNF is around doing the sort of the highest critical assets on the network. So we would be focusing on those red parts of rail, sleepers, and other assets. The next slide, please. We've just included also just a snippet of where these apologies, I really have no idea why we keep disconnecting. But here's just a quick snippet of where some of those condition 5 assets are on the network. And next slide, please. And this is the final slide, but this is currently within our published ARNP, our proposed program for Taranaki. So, sorry, so we can see the re-rail, sleepers, and bridges, culverts, and so forth that we intend to do over the financial year that we're in and the next 2 years. I'll stop there for questions because I'm fairly sure that we'll keep this internet cutting out.
Are there any further, Councillor Chong?
Is the sleeper replacement, the advantages between timber and concrete, and which ones are you doing? Is there a long-term advantage of either one, or is it cost?
Cool. So on those, I guess a big challenge with the timber sleepers is really sourcing them because it is hardwood. There's not a huge supply internationally, and a lot of the wood that's produced now isn't of that quality. So we do focus on concrete and composite, which is more like a plasticky. The other benefit, I guess, that we get of concrete sleepers is we do get a really long life asset out of those. Generally, they can cost more, but then also you've got the sort of the benefit of some of the production can be spread across the country for sleepers closer to where they're actually installed, which can get better value for money on that too.
Thank you.
Just a question for me. The asset table you have is not a good look, is it? The questions about passenger transport would really worry me as far as safety goes. The years that you've been operating, and to see that less than 50% is up to standard is pretty poor track record. And I use track record.
Yeah, it's a very good question. So what, I guess, the asset condition table, it doesn't say that we're operating in an unsafe way. Those assets are monitored daily by experts, and they have appropriate mitigations in place on the to enable the continued safe operation of the network. And if some of those assets did get to the point they were no longer safe, then the line, our teams do have the ability to close lines. And an example of that is a axle load limit or a temporary speed restriction on some of those assets.
Thank you.
Cool. So thank you for letting us come and present today. Apologies on the technology front, but we certainly appreciated being called up and being involved today. And also apologies that we couldn't have my colleagues join, which would be able to give you a much better sense of hubs and current freight volumes, but hopefully we'll be able to get them join next time.
I thank you for your presentation. I don't know if there are any final questions to sum things up. No, I take it not. And you're happy to share that presentation with us?
Yep.
And okay, thank you very much. So we have a recommendation that we receive.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much, Ben. We'll move on to item 8 on the agenda, which is the Wakatahi presentation. And I think Linda is going to give a bit of an update and a PowerPoint presentation, followed by a Zoom presentation from her team. So Linda, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. So yes, you've got my usual brief update, and we'll keep it short and snappy and take questions on that and in the detailed pack in the usual form. And then we have 2 of our national safety camera programme team coming to give you an update on the safety cameras moving over from the New Zealand Police into NZTA and what that looks like and what that means right across the state highway and local road network. We have the presentation. Drum roll. Only it starts. I will jump into slide 2 so that you will be aware that just before Christmas, our board chair announced the appointment of Brett Glidden as the chief executive for the New Zealand Transport Agency. They did undertake an extensive international recruitment process. Brett went through, I think, 7 or 8 individual interviews and came out the top candidate and accepted just prior to us breaking up at Christmas. He's a widely respected leader and well known right across New Zealand and also in Australia for his leadership and system thinking in the land transport system. And the great thing is as well is that he's got really well established relationships internally with the chair, with the current government, and right across the sector in New Zealand and Australia. So he really has hit the ground running, which is super important for us given the desire for delivery from our current government. He is indeed, yes. Studied in Canterbury. Just a really brief update on roads of national significance, and also we have the roads of regional significance progressing very well. The two that are of interest to the Central North Island are, of course, the Hawke's Bay Expressway, and then a little closer to home here, the Otaki to North of Levin project. Both at this stage are remaining on track to commence construction at the end of this year. Setting of speed limits rule, I won't dwell on too much, and we've got a specific Taranaki slide later in the pack, and noting as well that we have a paper from officers focused on your submission, but just really to reiterate the work that's been done by all of the road controlling authorities to hit these deadlines that have been set under the new setting of speed limit rules. That includes the reversal process on state highways that we're working through, on those that are out for consultation, and those that are subject to auto reversal, of which there aren't any in the Taranaki region, but also as well the deadline of 1 July for the implementation of the variable speed limits for all of us outside school gates as well. It is a very technical rule, so if you or your team, particularly your officers, do have questions about the implementation of that, we've got a number of our people that they can contact to just work through what it means practically on the ground for your council. National ticketing solution. I think Mike covered it really well, actually. I could maybe just jump it. The one thing that I would say is that the pilot, it's called Route 29 in Christchurch, goes between the CBD to the airport, has been a great success so far. We've had already 12,000, just over 12,000 individual contactless uses by debit or credit card since it went live in December. So that's 35% of all adult trips using that service. You can see as well the potential in the future once this gets running nationally for the types of data that we'll be able to collect to support and better inform how we can enable greater uptake of passenger transport, but also route usage to help with programming frequency where people are getting on and off as well. We are continuing to test, so Mike did mention we've got to move through a number of phases on user testing, and that's why we started off this pilot to iron out any lumps, bumps and wrinkles. And some of the more complex components, there are a few wrinkles in there, so we do need to make sure that before we start to roll it out, I think we're down south Timaru and Temuka, we're next on the regional rollout, that when we start to get more providers on, we've ironed out as many of those wrinkles as we possibly can. So the dates that were provisionally provided do look like they'll be pushed out a little bit, but we'll be confirming that with your team over the next few weeks, what that looks like. Just a brief update on this one, and mainly to say thank you to all of the road controlling authorities. The Road Efficiency Group, and this is an online dashboard that every council has access to, that looks across your performance network, the performance of your network, and as a plan, invest and fund in the transport system. But it also as well allows you to benchmark yourself against comparative councils and how you're performing. But thank you very much for the submission of all of your Q2 data as is required through the ministerial reporting requirement. That's really helping us to get a really clear baseline, particularly in areas such as TTM spend, but also overall how the investment's tracking from each RCA. It's really worthwhile jumping in, and perhaps your officers can provide you with regular reporting from the dashboard as well. Integrated delivery model. So this is the move by NZT away from our NOC, our Network Outcomes Contract model, to the integrated delivery model. Last year, it'll be November, December, we closed the registrations of interest. We've got the RFTs, the tender requests coming out this month, I think it is, end of March. And we're looking to begin to award the contracts out by the end of this year. The key thing for all of us, and I know it's always been we'll call it an area of interest in Taranaki, is that the IDM sees a really purposeful and meaningful shift for us to more accountability, more responsibility for quality control and performance management of our contractors, and greater ownership and control of the overall asset management, and to drive cost transparency into what we're delivering and how we're delivering it. The other part that is important to note as well is, while there still will be for the majority of the contract a lead contractor, there are then requirements around subcontracting to local businesses. But really importantly, there is a proportion of our state highway maintenance and operations work that will be separated off, if you like, and will go out into the open market for tendering for that work. And the main point of that is to drive capacity and capability build within your small to medium businesses in region. So to open the market up for working on the state highways to not just the tier 1 contractors, which I think is really, really positive from a smart procurement perspective. Temporary traffic management. I know that it's another hot topic and always will be, and rightly so. NZT and all road controlling authorities are now in the process of moving away from COPTM, the Code of Compliance for Temporary Traffic Management, to now I always have a mental block, the New Zealand Guide to Temporary Traffic Management, which is a risk-based approach. The main thing here is that rather than it being super prescriptive about what's required across every single type of road activity, it means that contractors are required to undertake their own risk assessment. So if you're doing work, let's say out at Wangamomana, do you need the same amount of or type of traffic management as you do if you're in the centre of Hamilton, for example? So it's looking to make it a more common sense and risk-based approach rather than more prescriptive. This does require, though, quite a capability change from both all of us as RCAs, but also the sector itself. So there's a huge amount of resources now available online and from NZTA and also from the industry standing group to help the sector in that transition.
I think we'd welcome that.
So, I'm thinking so. It's a slow change, but yes.
Yeah, just a question there. Who's going to actually make that decision on what the risk is and what is going to be used? Because most of the contractors now have their own temporary traffic management departments, and so they're obviously going to want them to be viable as well. So to me, there's a bit of a tension there between, yeah, we may not need as much out at Wonga as what we do in Harbour, but hang on a minute, with another 2,000 cones, there could be more profit in this. Just a comment on that, please, and who's doing it?
That's down to how you procure any bit of work. So for us, how we set that piece of work or that contract up in a procurement perspective. And then also as well, each RCA actually signs off that traffic management and approves it. So you've probably got those two checks and balances in it. And noting as well, like it's a point well made, and it came up at the Horizons RTC as well. There is quite a shift here for us all to work through, but so it's important that when we're setting the contracts up, that we consider that to drive the right behaviour as well as our expectations from our contractors too. But you'll ultimately get that sign off.
Thank you.
Chair, but just also ask on that, and just in a review of the traffic safety plans, reducing the number of cones is clearly part of it. How far are the changes going? Do they include the option of not having, say, 3 or 4 vehicles with 2 people sitting in each, watching those cones all day? And in some circumstances, several vehicles with 2 people sitting in each, watching the temporary traffic lights change colour all day. And why isn't that a problem sometimes at night when the same temporary lights are going and the same cones are sitting there, but they're not supervised in the same way. So how far are you, if the goal is the goal to remove cones or the goal to actually make the whole thing sensible and work as it should? Because it doesn't need people to sit there and observe cones when they're already in place and when there's traffic lights in place.
And the ultimate goal is to make sure that we've got a risk-based approach to how we manage road safety for particularly the workers and those that are on the roads, but as well noting that not every site is created equally, I guess, is the ultimate end goal. So it should be appropriate to the level of risk. And some of that will come down to time of day, some of it will come down to the amount and type of vehicles that are used on it. Some of it will come down to the level of risk at certain times. So in some sites, and certainly in the Central North Island, the levels of abuse we're experiencing on the roads and the health and safety in that respect. But no, we're not expecting to continue to see what may be perceived as an overuse of temporary traffic management.
Thank you for the reassurance.
You don't sound convinced.
Moving on to local activities, just a couple that I want to highlight here. We'll not focus on the greens, which are all really pleasing to see, but just an update on Te Aro Te Ata, the Mount Messenger bypass. Hopefully you've all seen the really positive media coverage that we have now started the excavation of the 235-metre tunnel on the site. Some may even have been lucky enough to go and check it out. I haven't yet. But it is a huge, huge moment for the project on the southern side. That began in February this year. We as well are starting on the staging work for the largest of the two bridges on the project. That's kicking off at the end of this month. And we will have completed over 300,000 cubic meters of earthworks on the site we completed that by the end of January this year. The progress is exceptional when you get to go up and actually have a look at it. The flip side, and I think I've made you all aware now as well, is that we are still facing ongoing legal challenges in the project. And at present, the Crown is awaiting a decision from the High Court on an appeal that's been lodged by the Northern Property Landowners against the Environment Court ruling back in May of 2024. This was a ruling that was in favour of the Crown's acquisition under the PWA for an 11-hectare parcel of land. The appeal for that was heard back in August 2024, and the decision has been now delayed for a second time. We're expecting to have a decision by April this year. So at this stage, we're focused on the tunnel, the bridges, enabling works, and some of the early works that can start on what we do already own on the northern side. On a positive note, though, would like to highlight State Highway 43, the ceiling in the Taranaki Gorge. That is now complete, and we do have a completion event planned for next week to celebrate that. The cultural narrative works that will go the length of State Highway 43 in conjunction with our iwi partners. They'll be complete by the middle of the year and will really augment the overall experience for both locals and visitors. And then the setting of speed limits rule, we'll get into this a little bit more detail together on the paper comes later in the pack, but just really want to highlight consultation does close 5 p.m. today and the importance of local submissions. More often than not, people can tend to only submit if they're vehemently opposed. If the communities, local road users, local businesses want to retain the lower speeds, it is critically important that they do submit to us to let us know. The setting of speed limits rule is very prescriptive as well on how submissions will be managed and the importance and the weighting provided to the local community, local road users, local businesses, and the local freight sector as well. Couldn't go past the significant maintenance season that you've seen right across the network. The season has been progressing really well. and would just like to thank each of your councils for your support in making it happen. Some of it has been hugely disruptive, and particularly trying to balance that with the major events that have been happening in the region across the summer season. So thank you to you and your council officers for your help on that. But you can see that it's on track and running really well. Sorry, go for it.
Yeah, I'm just changed my back to a bouquet. I went to Wanganui on Sunday, whatever day it was, and significantly improved network. It's really noticeable right from New Plymouth right down to Wanganui. And congratulate you on that. It's been so positive turnaround from the years that we've been sitting on this side of the table, chucking the bats at you and you're missing the balls. But to see it changing, it's magnificent. So, I'd like to pass a bouquet to the agency to push that on very quickly. And I think we will see this year, we won't be complaining at our next meeting about potholes.
Can you have that recorded, please?
The pothole bit?
No.
What, by bouquet?
Bouquet.
Both items.
I mean, it's a milestone. It's fantastic.
I will absolutely pass that on, especially to our maintenance and operation team and those that live and work in the region. It's been huge for them and they are very proud of what's been achieved. But also as well, I think it is important to note the direction and directives from the current government that we do have to up the investment into the region. And I think we've seen that where South Taranaki have really seen both the benefits and the disruption of the additional investment. And then next season, as a heads up, it'll be moving north up to your patch into Stratford and then up into New Plymouth. Although I would note that New Plymouth has been experiencing its fair share of disruption to Councillor Chong. But you can see the good progress that's been made. So I do genuinely appreciate that feedback. And I think that's pretty much it, unless you've got any questions for me.
Councillor Chong.
Yes, I thought I'd bring it up. I think I brought it up before, but just last night, and it is outside my house, but it's not about me. Just last night, 2 vehicles travelling over 120k in a 50k zone. Our council has unanimously voted to put 150,000 towards looking at the installation of speed cameras there. Waikato, I get the revenue. Hopefully we get funded back until that revenue is covered and then you get it after that. But, we've had dozens of serious accidents there, dozens over the last 10 years. And they seem to just, even though we're willing to fund it, they seem to not start saying it's not an important area to do. How can we get Waikato to seriously look at that? I mean, council are willing to fund the cameras, and you guys are going to get the revenue. And I just don't want to pick up more bodies there. Because I did say a couple of years ago, it's not if, but when we have a dead body there, and 8 months later that happened. I've also had, I think in the last 6 months, there's been 2 people that are still in hospital from their crashes, and that they were between 8 and 9 months ago, still in hospital. So they are serious accidents, and there are still people seriously speeding. And I know that the police do a great job. They park up on Lemon Street there, so they know how many speed, but it's when they're not there, they use it as a racing track and a drab strip from the lights. So how can we get that going, considering, and I know it's different, but considering that council have offered to pay for the cameras. So I think that's something that we need to look at. And I don't know if that's a first in the country that the council has offered to do that. How can we get this sorted?
Brilliant segue, Councillor Chong, because we have the safety camera presentation coming up. But just a couple of points.
I thought I was a bit early. Yeah.
Yes, there's been other offers for that, and there is currently other ownership on the network down in the South Island. But other points of clarity, we do not receive the money, and neither do the police currently either. So that's not how that would work. And there's probably broader considerations as well that we'll get into through the safety camera programme in terms of government priority for where the GPS, so set by the government, want to roll out the safety camera network and make use of what's existing and their priorities for that. So I think probably more so what is important is the scene setting for the national approach, and understanding some of the constraints that exist to perhaps providing a fixed safety camera into a national network as well.
Is this a Zoom presentation from?
Yes.
I'll ask the question there then.
I think they're
Not
on
so
and they will have
detailed,
heard
just,
you.
yeah, just
Yeah.
I'll shorten it a lot. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
And if we have responded to the letter received from New Plymouth District Council's mayor directly, and have supported the minister in his response to the mayor and council as well on this one. Any other questions or more on safety cameras?
Page 42, through you, Chair, thank you. Big Jim's overbridge to East Richmond Road. What's happening there? What's the overbridge? Could you explain that, please?
Which one is it? No, I need to come back to you on that.
Okay.
I couldn't comment on that with any certainty.
The Richmond Road, is it?
Big Jim's overbridge to east of Richmond Road.
That'll be the Water road.
That'll be the rail bridge.
Yes, it
The
is.
rail bridge going over the rail as you go down Big Jim's Hill.
And the entrance
must be a
road down to
rehab.
White-
Oh, it's a
Yeah,
rail
White
bridge
Street.
going over. I thought,
So it'll
okay,
be the
thank you.
rehab under it.
Under
Yeah,
it.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
all right, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
And Richard and Natasha are online.
Are they online, ready to go? Excellent. Any other? Okay. Kia ora, Richard. Kia ora, Natasha. Thank you for joining us. I'll just set the scene in the usual fashion and then hand over to you both for intros and a presentation. So as I mentioned, we're in the transition process of the safety cameras. So that currently is the fixed and mobile safety cameras that are out on the network from the New Zealand Police over into NZTA. This is in line with the government policy statement on transport and the expectations of our minister, and forms an important part of the government road safety plan, with a particular emphasis on how we utilise enforcement right across the local road and state highway network to improve better road safety outcomes. This as well has got funding through the NLTP to support both the transition but also the rollout. And then the National Safety Camera Programme team have got quite specific priorities for which types of cameras will be rolled out when and where across the network. So the purpose of this presentation is to bring us up as an RTC all to the same level of understanding of what's going to happen, why and when. And then we will commence engagement at a RCA at an individual council level, because one of the key things that we really want to understand alongside all of the data and insights that we collect on a day-to-day basis is the local knowledge, what's happening on your network, what are you seeing and feeling, where are the hot spots or the high-risk spots, and how does that correlate with the crash data, the speed data that we've got access to. So how can we better utilise or deploy safety cameras to get great road safety outcomes in your neck of the woods too? So I'll hand over to Richard for a bit of an intro, and then you can jump into it. I think there's a bit of interest here, Richard.
Yeah, thanks very much, Linda. Can I just do a time check? How quickly do you want me to work through this? How much time have we got for this discussion?
10 minutes.
10 minutes?
For
Okay.
the presentation, any Q&A?
Yep. Okay. Thanks very much. Kia ora koutou, ko Richard Stewart Takawingawa. So I'm the Program Director for the Safety Camera Program at NZTA Waikotahi. And I'll introduce Natasha Dingle, who is our Principal Communications and Engagement Advisor for the Safety Camera Program. I think Natasha's going to share some slides that we'll just use to guide the conversation. Keen to have some dialogue. Obviously, there's already been some questions, and happy to work through that. Linda's done a really good job of setting the scene. As per Linda's presentation, you've already seen some of the results of the government's relatively new government policy statement on land transport that has had some implications for safety cameras as well, and road safety more generally. So just in the last few months, the government has published its road safety objectives. Maybe if you can just move on to the next slide, please, Natasha. And so the government has given very clear direction to NZTA for the current financial year anyway, to focus on completing the transfer of cameras from police and also the rollout of signage across New Zealand, and we're on track to have those completed. The road safety objectives document, which is on the Ministry of Transport website, also talks about an investigation of expansion of the camera network in future years. So as well as transferring the fixed cameras from police, we're also in the process of standing up our own mobile safety camera operations and starting enforcement in the next few months. We got approval for a limited expansion of the network, so around about 50 cameras between now and 2027, and we'll talk a little bit more about those. Those will primarily be average speed or point-to-point cameras. So maybe if we move on again, Natasha. So we've published another document on the NZTA website called our Safety Camera Network Framework, and that outlines our overall approach. I won't go through each of these, but I guess just emphasising that the cameras are all about road safety. They're not about revenue generation. As Linda said, we don't get to keep the revenue from the cameras. That goes to the Treasury. And we want our approach to enforcement to be aligned with our overall approach as the regulator of land transport, which is we want to be fair and transparent. We actually want the change in behaviour. So in an ideal world, we wouldn't issue any tickets. Our goal is to get people to comply with the law. So moving on again, Natasha. So in terms of how do we identify and prioritise sites, so we are taking a national approach. We have a fairly sophisticated computer model which looks at every single piece of road in New Zealand, both state highways and local roads, and that model is it doesn't matter whether it's a state highway or a local road. We're just looking at where the risk is. So we're looking at some of the historical patterns in terms of crash data, deaths and serious injuries, but we're also using some of the characteristics of the road and road user behaviour to do some prediction as to where those deaths and serious injuries could occur in the future. So we look at that national picture and we treat all roads equally, and then we have to go through the difficult task of prioritising, because unfortunately we have much more risk on New Zealand's roads than we would like, and we've got a limited amount of budget available for new cameras at this point. So just a bit of a summary in terms of what's happening in your region. So there's one understand existing police fixed camera that's now got a signpost installed, and we will NZTA will be taking over enforcement of that camera in the next month or so, and there may be some minor works just as we make sure that all the safety infrastructure aligns to our standards. As I mentioned, we will also start operating our own mobile safety cameras in the next few months. We're going to be using a mixture of vehicles and also trailer-based mobile cameras. These cameras won't be signposted, and we're also looking at those using those for locations where we can't, for whatever reason, we can't install a fixed camera, or it doesn't stack up. So some of the situation that I think Councillor Chong referred to, where in terms of our risk modelling, that that particular location hasn't made it up into our top list of priorities, but we will still look at where we can use mobile safety camera enforcement to address that risk.
I just asked a question before you go on there.
Yeah.
Talking about the spot cameras being vehicle or trailer, and operational safety comes to concerns. Years ago, when they first brought out cameras, they had the cameras in the back of vans with the rear doors open. There was a number of incidents where vehicles ran up the behind those cameras and into those vehicles through lack of visibility, certain sunlights and things like that. And from then on, the doors always had to be shut to give a vehicle a bigger look, rather than just the door up, which you couldn't see through or into. With the trailer, my concern is that you're going to end up with that situation again, being a small vehicle parked on the side of the road with a camera in it, and visibility may be of a problem. How are those cameras going to look, and how's that going to make sure that operation is safe?
Yeah, so health and safety is a absolutely fundamental consideration in terms of how we deploy these cameras. Over the next few months, we'll be engaging with road controlling authorities around how we make sure that we're operating safely on local roads. In short, we're doing detailed health and safety audits on every single site that we deploy from, and we'll be seeking local guidance, including from the RCA, to make sure that that the way that we operate these cameras doesn't introduce risk either to the operator or to the road users. So that will be absolutely fundamental to how we're operating these cameras. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. I still probably have a concern about using a smaller trailer on the side of the road. But anyway, if you're covering it, we'll wait and see.
Yep. And then I think I've just got one more slide, Natasha. So as I said, we do have some funding for additional cameras. These will primarily be average speed or point-to-point cameras. So this is a new technology that was only enabled by new legislation, I think just over a year ago. Basically, you have a corridor where there are two or possibly more cameras, one at each end. As a vehicle enters the corridor, we take a photo of it, we capture the number plate and a timestamp, and then we take another photo of the vehicle as they exit that corridor, and then compare the timestamp and do a calculation to sort of say what was the average speed of that vehicle as it travelled through that corridor. Internationally, these have been very effective in terms of reducing deaths and serious injuries. And so we're looking at how we use this technology around the country using the prioritisation method that I talked about before. So at the moment, we are looking at some corridors within the central North Island. At the moment, we don't have any sites lined up for Taranaki, but we will be working with RCAs around those potential locations, and we're aiming to start enforcement of those first corridors by the end of this year.
Hey, Councillor Chong.
Yes, just with that paragraph, what to expect. You're well aware that our council unanimously voted to put 150,000 towards a specific area, which is known locally as quite a dangerous area. I don't know if you heard the discussion before, but just last night, 2 vehicles, 120k. I did hear that, yeah. So how much sway is that? Or are you just going to, because as far as I'm concerned, it looks like you're just going to ignore that, saying it hasn't come up on our list. But unanimously, our council has voted that we really need one there. So, what sway is that, or is that just being ignored? Because that's how we're seeing it.
So it's certainly not being ignored. So there's definitely been investigation of that location, and we have looked at at how it stacks up in terms of the national priorities. So those things are taken very seriously. I guess the other thing just to bear in mind is that the technology is quite sophisticated, and so there are a number of considerations in terms of how we actually go about implementing cameras, even if they are funded by another RCA. So it does take some time to make sure that we're able to connect that camera to our network, that we're able to meet all of the government's security requirements, and so on as well. So it does take some time to get those arrangements in place. As Linda said, we do have those arrangements currently with Auckland Transport and Christchurch City, but that does take time to get all of those things in place.
Just it's adding to the question of what you've just said is you've been saying I've been told you've been saying you're investigating it. It's been over 1.5 years now since I've heard that, what I call an excuse. How long does it take to investigate something? I just don't want another death on that road or serious injury at the cost of it's taking time. How can we put a time frame on this investigation?
I might jump in on this
Please.
one. I think what we've heard there is that it's not been ignored, that they have investigated the location, but at the minute the crash data insights, when you prioritise it across the whole of the country, it's not meeting the test in terms of the amount of investment we've got for new fixed safety cameras. You've seen that the government's priorities here are on mobile cameras and on the point-to-point ones. So we've got limitations with how many new fixed safety cameras can be rolled out.
So the data is just on crashes, not speed, actual speed. Because I witnessed a lot of speed. Crashes are very minimal compared to the speed.
I might just continue. That's the current priorities at the moment. So what's been outlined is that the priorities are the mobile cameras and the point-to-point. So what I would consider when the team begin to engage with you as an individual RCA, we've got those constraints to work within. We're hearing, and you've noted that the team have said that your concerns have been taken seriously, between the police enforcement and the utilisation of what may be available via mobile safety cameras in the shorter term until more funding becomes available for fixed. How do we work in a constructive way to progress that as an interim, rather than as coming head to head when we are not able to deploy a fixed camera there? So is there a way forwards in the short term between yourselves, the police, and utilisation appropriately of mobile cameras in that site?
Yes.
So I think that we just need to kind of think laterally within the boundaries that we've got.
Just to touch on that, you've said when more funding comes available, we're willing to fund it. So that's what I'm hearing. It's a double standard. They say, let's wait for funding, but our council's willing to fund it. So
and that is just the purchase of the camera, which is the small part of overall how we're operating the network. There is the technological integration, the administration, the enforcement, the raising of the tickets. So the upfront cost is actually the smaller part of it. What we're saying is when the funding becomes available to roll out more fixed cameras across the whole country. At the moment, the government's been very clear that their priority for investment is in mobile cameras and in point-to-point cameras. So my suggestion is we know what those priorities are. How do we leverage them together in the short term to address some of the concerns that you've raised?
Thank you. Thank you for that. Nothing further? I take it not. I do thank you, Richard, for your presentation. Natasha, thank you for that. And we will look forward to the safety improvements going forward.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, team. So
with that, we have a recommendation that we receive the updates and presentations from NZTA. Moved and seconded by Councillor Cloak. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. With that, thank you for coming forward, Fiona. Item 9 on the agenda you'll find on page 53 is about a submission on the State Highway 3 speed limit reversals. And would you like to introduce that, Fiona?
Happy to, although I think it's already been adequately covered.
It has been well covered.
And I was trying to think of another way of saying a no-brainer, but I'm going to really put that one too. So it's fairly clear cut. and certainly the feedback we had in the draft submission was also very clear cut, that it was perfectly what everyone wanted to say. So basically, we know the reasons why the speed limits were put down for the Waitara to Bell Block section of State Highway 3 until such a time as all of those works have been completed, and it can be reconsidered at that time what the appropriate speed is. Now is not the time. So really just wanting a direction that everyone is happy with the submission as drafted so that I can put it in this afternoon at the conclusion of this meeting.
Thank you. Are there any alterations or additions?
No, I think, Chair, that's pretty self-explanatory and it's a good submission. And I think, having to relook at it after the project's finished is a good idea. And we'll further discuss then whether we need to lift it or not. But I think all councils fully support the submission. So send it off.
Thank you. Could I have a mover that follow the 4 recommendations?
Second.
Seconded by Mayor Volsky. So you are welcome to push the send button. Fiona, thank you very much. By 5 o'clock. No pressure.
Very good.
4:55. Yeah, earlier.
12:15.
Thank you. Item 10 on the agenda is the correspondence and information items, which we have listed. Fiona, would you like to comment on those while you're on the hot seat?
Certainly, just a really brief introduction. So this is just our standard part of where we provide updates. So we have the release of the new road safety objectives, which Linda did cover last time, but to indicate what a soft release that was the first I knew of them, was when Linda presented. So just providing an actual, the documentation here, some high level guidance about what that says. There is a response to the deputation from New Zealand Equestrian Advocacy Network, talking about the managing of road and culverts optimally, just making you aware of some work that the RTAG has undertaken in trying to make things smoother and more efficient for everyone in that regard, with the added costs and complexity that the RCAs are facing when it comes to upgrading or improving road and culverts, and considering the number of those that we have in our region, which you'll remember from the RLTP is around 4,000. And that's just on our network. And 1,000 of those are on the state highway. You're welcome. Yeah, just making you aware really that work is underway and has been happening and it's been very successful. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions regarding that upcoming work? I think everyone's happy with it at this stage. So that could I please have a mover on the recommendations from page 63, please. Thank you, Mayor Nixon. Seconded, Councillor Claypool in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 11 on the agenda, which is the page 81, which is regarding the meeting planner. Again, back to you, Fiona.
Great, we're getting through these well, making up time. So this one is really regarding just laying out a bit of what's happening for 2025, what we expect. Naturally, there will be things we don't expect, and we'll deal with those as they come through. But so while this is not a period of concerted RLTP development, there are a range of activities underway that will provide feeders into the next RLTP, and these are likely to shape some of the agenda items that will come through you throughout the year. So the first one noted there on page 82 is we are expecting some legislative change. Land transport is certainly hasn't been a key focus, but it is certainly not going to be left alone. So we are expecting that a bill may come through in mid-2025 to alter the Land Transport Management Act. Now, the signals for that were provided really clearly in the GPS 2024. So just provided some detail there, as much as we know, which isn't much at the moment. And mentioning work that's being undertaken by officers and along with our colleagues in Greater Wellington, Hawke's Bay and the Horizons, just working on some lower North Island freight work, which is currently quite a gap. We have the South Island has an RDC Chairs Forum that have funded through all some studies into that. Lack of data is one of our key issues right across every region, and as we know, freight doesn't stop within a region anyway. So we're wanting a better understanding of those freight flows. You'll remember at the RLTP 2024 that on the Horizons listing, there included the expert that's there on page 82, for a lower North Island freight strategy. And that's what we're currently scoping out at the moment, with Greater Wellington taking the lead on that.
Thank you. Are there any
that?
questions of the implementation updates? Covered it well again. With that, there are recommendations on page 85. No, sorry.
No.
That's it, just the information updates.
81.
Information only. I'm sorry? 81, sorry. The three recommendations. Moved by Councillor Nixon, seconded by Councillor Mivolski. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much, Fiona. We move on to item 12, which is our updates from our district councils. And you'll find from page 85. And we will receive the first update, New Plymouth District Council. Sarah, I'd like to come and join us.
I was given the opportunity to just read what we'd submitted. So.
That's fine, you're right.
I will take the submission as read, and if you have any questions, happy to take those. But I would like to pass on the opportunity to express New Plymouth District Council's concerns about recent road safety and crashes on the network, and just want to stress that we are wanting to work with NZTA to how we can help improve the number of serious crashes and fatalities that have happened on the network, especially over the last weekend. But happy to take any other questions.
Any questions for the MPDC at this stage? I take it not. I thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next is South Taranaki District Council. We don't have a representative. Ned Nixon, anything you want to highlight in their report?
No, not really. Again, I'll take it as read, and possibly can't answer questions, but if there is, I can take them back if I can't answer.
Easy. Are there any questions with regard to the South Taranaki District Council? I take it not. Everyone's very happy with reports. We can take that back.
Very good. Thank you.
And we will move on to the Stratford District Council. Mr. Bowden, thank you for joining us and filling in the gaps with South Taranaki.
Oh, I can wing it on Vincent's behalf, won't you?
We'll let you concentrate on yours, I think, for the sake of that role.
Thank you, Chair. Just a bit of an update there of what we've been doing over the last 6 months. We're virtually halfway through the budget, which is good to hear. It's a bit of a snapshot, a typical month in Stratford, what we do around the network. There's an old wooden bridge out east, Gowers Access, which the Mayor may be well aware of. So we gave that a bit of a birthday last month in January. It needed a bit of TLC, so we did the honours and did that. Doing a little bit of pavement work in the last couple of months, making use of this very fine weather, and we've got to replace an old culvert on Waiwiri Road, which, for those that don't know where it is, it's out the back of Coco School. So this is one of the conversations which got raised at the meeting we had with Fiona and the culverts, because you can see what we took out and you can see what we put in. So, and a lot of that is to do with the environmental standards for freshwater management, which is, you know, the regional council enforced that on behalf of the government, but there you go. So in terms of resilience and all the rest of it, and climate change, you can see we've basically taken out a pipe that's 1.2 meters in diameter, and we put something in that's 2 by 2, so 4 times the waterway area to meet the minimum requirements of the NES. So we're all facing the same problems. And basically, and as regarding the speed limit reviews, I'm happy to say that I've been liaising with the speed management team in Wellington, and our go live date's 28th of April to reverse all our permanent 30k, 60k school speed limits to variable 30, 60. So that's the date we're working towards. That's 20th of April this year.
Very good. That's
about it from me. Any questions?
Any questions?
Just a question on that one. The sign cost. Have you had any feedback from the NZTA about helping you assist to reverse those around schools, especially?
Through you, Chair, we've got an application in for the $30,000 with NZTA at the moment, which is being reviewed. So what we've gone for, because of the costing side of things, is just the new static sign rather than the electronic version.
Yeah, I mean, it happened, and there is a huge cost to reverse it. And I think, this committee should support a request of funding lodged with the NZTA to assist with the reversing of those around schools, especially. And I don't know where the NZTA sits at the moment, but there's been a lot of negative press about it. The cost, I think New Plymouth brought up the cost of what theirs were, and I haven't heard from the others, but I think, as a committee, we should be supporting getting some benefit or funding back from the agency, at least to reverse the school.
Through you, Chair, there is funding available that's been committed and communicated to all RCAs. It is at standard FAR rate, which, given timing of LTPs and budgets, wouldn't have been something that would have ordinarily this year been in the budget. So that's why it's a 1 July 2026 end date for it. So there is contribution available for that, not full, but in part.
Sure, it will be greatly appreciated.
Well, no.
And if I may, see you're the only one here that we can actually chuck stones at or support in this case. Last meeting we had quite a in-depth discussion, and you were concerns about loggers' behaviour, especially having structures on the network. And I mean, this whole committee was concerned about that behaviour. Have you seen any improvement in loggers' behaviour in your network? And I suppose that goes back to the other councils as well.
Sorry, Mark, but through you, Chair, no. No, I mean, they're still acting as if, we've got another bridge on Puniwaka Road which has been hit. I mean, it's the Armco barrier. Despite the fact that one logging company a few years ago now did a little bit of a roading improvement to improve the approach onto the bridge. For us, unfortunately, the road that turns through a 90-degree corner. So you improve the approach, but the bridge still gets hit. So that's one aspect of it, but it's not so much damage to the structures. It's just a blatant disregard they got for any other road users, which is what I'm getting complaints about. As if, I mean, I think they need to slow down, for one. We're getting a few complaints from some residents on Mangahoo Road. It's an unsealed road because they go in empty that way because we've got a weight limited bridge on it, and they go out through Brewer Road and the tunnel and come back down 43. So the complaints I'm getting is the speed and the fact that they hog the road. I'm in a big truck, get out of the bloody way, I'm coming through. And that's the attitude that we're getting at the moment. And I think it's about time the Road Freight Association stood up and had to go with some of these operators, because we can talk to them until we're blue in the face. They don't necessarily listen to us.
Well, we do have a transport representative in the room. It's appropriate, Chair, if we could ask through you to ask that organisation to get something out and maybe work with Steve on identifying some of the concerns, and if it's possible to get it out to their organisation to try and get some improvement, because this has been going on for some time now, and it's really not acceptable.
I'm more than happy if you could have a chat with Steve and come and work with something, or if there's anything you'd like to add briefly.
I'm happy to do that, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Steve, and identify those that
one's concerned.
Yeah, I'm through you, Chair. I'm happy to.
Thank
I'm
you.
not going to say here, but I'm happy to have a chat with Mark offline and
Please do that.
names of some operators that.
Mm-hmm.
We do have the police here with an ear open as well, so.
And perhaps next time you can just give us a bit of an update where we sit with this, because it is a major concern to not only the infrastructure, but as you mentioned, to other road users.
Thank you.
Through you, Chair, can I just add, if you're going to have that discussion and put out some sort of request, that you put some consideration and emphasis on the Steve's term, hogging the road, big vehicles on narrow roads, the feedback that I get most often is from local residents. There's not that many of them, but they are there. And in particular, their concerns are around striking logging trucks at a time that school buses or vans are running, or people are taking their kids to the pickup points. So they sort of double down on the fact that those are often school routes as well. And if they come across a van and a truck at the same place, that's not a fair contest. So yeah, be extra careful around school transport hours on both ends of the day. Yeah.
I'm sure they can work around that with regard to some of their travel routes and times travelled, etc. They can have a bit of a chat through that, and I'm sure we'll come to some amicable agreement with that. So, thank you. We'll move on to the next update from TRC on the public transport activities. Cheryl, over to you. Thank you.
Chair. It's just a summary of the work that my small team is currently doing in relation to projects.
Any questions with regard to the public transport report? I take it not. Thank you very much for your report, and it is appreciated.
That was easy.
Could I please have page 85, our 4 recommendations to receive the update presentations. Can I have a mover? The second, Mayor Nixon, seconded Councillor Cloak. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you very much. Item 13 on the agenda is our road safety update. You'll find from page 104, and I see Mrs. Webby there sitting ready to go. So, Marion, I'd ask you to step forward. And also, in amongst that, if there is something that the New Zealand Police want to add with that as well, please feel free to use this time. That's your bit.
Right.
Over to you, Marion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Right, so it's probably been about 12 months since I think we were last here at a meeting. So thanks very much for having us. And I'm sorry, but since this PowerPoint was compiled, we've actually had a little bit of news around our funding. So what we had, or what we're showing for what we're planning on doing, has now sort of been flipped on its head a little bit. So we've just had year 2 and 3 funding of our local share from New Plymouth District Council withdrawn. So moving forward, we're just going to have Road Safe Taranaki working in South Taranaki in the Stratford district. So it is going to be quite a change. And so what's happened since the 1st of July, obviously we know there's been a decent amount of funding that's changed. And so ultimately it worked out at around 65% of our funding changed. And what that did was sort of affected some staff roles. And so our New Plymouth FTE, the contract didn't get renewed. And we had to drop some of our programs. So originally we dropped our recidivist drink driving program from 4 to 3. And obviously with New Plymouth changing, that's going to drop down to 1. So that will seriously affect the police referrals and corrections referrals, because we're only going to be running 1 program in the year. We also had what we're looking at doing is our radio advertising was pulled, and that's through the government rather than any funding issues, because the government wanted to have a nationwide advertising, so we can only target specific projects while we're doing any sort of advertising. And then also the likes of the AMP shows and our rural groups and community events that we used to attend, some of that was also affected, just because we had to, again, like everyone else, make some tough calls on what could or couldn't be delivered. And then so that sort of affects the delivery that we're providing. So we've obviously provided an update from the RSAP group as a group, and the police and Road Safe Taranaki value the opportunity to come and deliver here. However, we did a bit of a questionnaire in December to ask the RSAP group what it is that they get from the meetings. And some of the feedback was actually the changing economic landscape has forced some organisations to actually reassess their priorities. So it means adjusting their staff time and their budgets accordingly. So it's also meaning that the people aren't on the ground in Taranaki as they've gone to region-wide things. And a lot of people were coming in just seeking information because they didn't have the ability or the capacity to actually support some of the programs that the other collaborators were doing. And look, at RSAPs, we're actually a key part of the Safe System and the Road to Zero programs. It was about promoting collaboration and regional delivery. And to be approved for funding, road controlling authorities actually had to have an RSAP in place, run their quarterly meetings, and actually look at what were they going to be delivering, what were their expected outcomes and their future delivery. So, but obviously that's all changed with the changes in getting rid of Road to Zero and some of the funding. So the December 24 meeting, all the people that were there reviewed and questioned why we were meeting, and they agreed collectively to look at just possibly meeting once a year and then relying on Road Safe Taranaki, the 3 councils, police and the NZTA representatives to meet quarterly and send that information out via email, so at least they're getting that information on what's being planned. And so our recent Road Safe Taranaki success, so this is based on what we've done since the 1st of July. We've had a real focus on driver education and mainly around behaviours and attitudes and understanding your responsibility as a driver. So we've had Ready to Drive expos, we've had a young driver weekend, we've looked at older driver workshops, and at the moment Rider, which is Road Safety Education Trust, is in Taranaki, and they're aimed at year 12 students. So they had Boys High yesterday, they're delivering to Girls High today, and then they've got Francis Douglas, Sacred Heart, Inglewood, Stratford, Patia, Pai and Opunaki, and I think Taranaki Dio in March and April, so they're coming back to do that. And so a really good program. We haven't funded them this year, but we have in the past. Again, we didn't have the budget and they managed to find some funding. And our workplace charter, we've currently got 258 members, probably 245 of those companies are based in New Plymouth. It's something we've asked for some funding from New Plymouth to keep that afloat because it's been going for a decade, 10 years, and we've got road safety in the workplace. But again, moving forward, that may have to be dropped if we don't have anything in place. So we've just got to review again how that happens. And then a couple of other things, the one for the road, every program we've had in the last 18 months has been full to capacity. So again, something else that we want to keep going, but we're not going to have the funding. So our summer campaign was shortened just because of budget constraints, but we still sent over 300 letters to vehicle owners. And I think we had 5 police operations. So Robbie will talk a little bit to that. And that was around cell phones, distractions, restraints, and stop signs. And then we also attended Te Matatini with the police in a cross-agency collaboration with NZTA, Safe Kids Aotearoa, ACC. We had the seatbelt simulator on site. 275 people sat on that machine over the 5 days, and we probably had 5 times that listening as we were talking and showing people how to wear seatbelts correctly even. But it was really interesting, our staff there, the number of young people that are not wearing their seatbelts all the time, just every now and again. So we had around 200 of them were males, and the bulk of the numbers were between sort of 13 and 18. So we did hit the right age bracket. The problem was we didn't probably get the 30s and 40 males that are possibly influencing those younger ones. And then just in our schools, we've been doing work with schools around chaos at the school gates, particularly in the New Plymouth schools, safety vests. Our staff have recently sent out an email to every school to say, here's some things we can be looking at. And in typical schools, we've had a significant number of responses about them wanting us to come in and have a talk around speed, around safety of their students, and around parents parking in particular. Kids Safe Taranaki currently are still running their free child restraint clinics. However, the funding for that only comes from Road Safe Taranaki. So again, some of those New Plymouth-based ones will have to be dropped, and they're now looking at where possibly would we be able to get some funding to keep those running after the 1st of July. And so this is where everything's sort of a little bit higgledy-piggledy, because this was based on our full funding. But look, the key thing is strengthening our relationships with schools, and hopefully it was going to be into the workplaces. And the reason for that is if we can change attitude and behaviour in the schools and in workplaces, hopefully that's going to extend out to home life and out into the community. So we're actually growing considerate drivers instead of people that have no idea on how to share the road. And if we're doing this work, it means that we can probably allocate more time to that 5 to 10% of people that are really difficult to change. For example, it'll be the same people doing it day in, day out, and it's those people that are really difficult, but you need a lot of time to get that behaviour change. Enforcement certainly helps. So that's sort of where we're at. And then it's all up to Robbie.
Cool. Thank you. So just before Christmas, we ran our annual Christmas driving operation. So over Taranaki, we tested 21,302 drivers over a 4-day period. I brought up the minimum 2 impairment team as well, and we got 22 drink drivers over that 4-day period. For the Central District, which covers Manawatu, Wanganui and Taranaki, we tested 39,000 and got 49 drink drivers over that period. So it just showed us that the drink drivers are still out there consistently. Unfortunately, throughout the year, so far this year we've had 4 fatalities, same number as we had about this time last year in Taranaki. We average about 11 per year. That's our average. Last week I was able to have Phil Ward, the inspector, up, and we went up to and had a look at the Mount Messenger site. So that's the first time he's driven that road. Wasn't aware of, I've been saying for a long time, it takes a long time if we have a serious crash in that area or a fatality. So it takes a long time to get our serious crash team that are based in Manawatu up in that period. So with my impending retirement, I've finished in July. I'm trying to get the agreement that we had with the Waikato serious crash, that they would at least come down to the Mokaau Bridge, because at least it's quicker for Hamilton-based team to come down to there, or looking at ways that we can upskill some of the staff that we've got in Taranaki so that we can get the road open, and trying to emphasise to them that we've only got one way in South Taranaki and North Taranaki, and we've got to get those roads open for people. So that was really good. And so I've asked them to come back up and actually drive the entire road. So we've got up to Mount Messenger, but he's still not fully aware of where our boundary is and how long it takes for those guys to come here. So enforcement's, Marion talked about our seatbelt campaign. We try and run that on a regular basis. unfortunately, sadly, we've issued 797 seatbelt tickets in Taranaki that's since 1 July last year. We've issued 609 cell phone tickets. So and often we go back to the same places. People know that we're there. They still pick up the phone. And speed. We try and go back to those areas that are causing us harm. So far since 1 July, we've issued over 7,000 speed tickets. So that's why we're still getting fatalities. That's why we're still having serious crashes, unfortunately. Any questions?
Councillor Chong.
Yes, several weeks ago I was stuck with a stock truck that rolled in Mokia.
Yes.
We were stuck there for like 4.5 hours. And we would have that conversation. They've got to come up from Palmerston. Did they not consider flying them up by chopper? Because it holds so many people up for 4 hours.
Yes, no, I totally agree with you. Yes, we have. We've had that conversation. We've talked to the Air Force as well, because they've got a chopper on standby for search and rescue. So talked about putting that to
just as important, yeah. So what do they say to that?
No, it has to be. They won't do it for a serious crash. It's for search and rescue only. So that's part of their protocols. But we're still working behind the scenes. We're still trying to get a full-time serious crash person based in Taranaki. So
okay.
Yeah, Robbie, I just want to congratulate you on your pending retirement. I think 35 years is a great achievement. And just want to also thank you for all the work that you've done within Taranaki and also coming to this committee often, and the State Highway 31 as well. You will be missed. Just I hope you can come back and see us again now and again.
Oh, you can invite me when
we'll invite you for lunch.
Projects,
we'll invite you for lunch. But no, I just want to thank you very much for all the help on behalf of this committee and over the years in policing. So it's been appreciated. And Marion, I just have a question. Is there any way that you could possibly work with Mark as well on this logging issue to get some messages out? Is that be done something through Road Safe?
Yeah, we recently did Sharing the Road with Trucks brochure that I went through the agencies to just check that the wording was right and stuff like that. And so they were going to look at using that and maybe changing a little bit to get that nationwide for vehicles and other road users sharing the road with trucks. But yeah, it could be a really good opportunity to do some work around that.
Work together.
Yeah, absolutely. And sorry, Mr. Chair, I just forgot to sort of introduce David Pence. So I'm not sure whether people have met David. He's the Road Safe Taranaki program manager. So he took over from Ella Burrow. So he's the program manager, community development manager at South Taranaki District Council.
Thank you. And again, from the chair, thank you very much to Robbie for your service to our community.
Thank you. I think that's why we do so well in Taranaki, is that there's a whole lot of partnerships, and that we can make that phone call and make a change quickly without a lot of the hassle that we have to go through in other areas. So it's been a pleasure working with you. We will keep having, whoever my replacement will be, we will keep sending someone along, because it's really important. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I hope I don't meet you on the road between now and July.
I'm getting you knee in March, late March.
If not, we'll see you at the Mount Messenger opening. So
I'll move and receive it.
And thank you. And second by Mayor Nixon. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Moving on to page 115, which is our Karakia close, and also a Karakia for Kai. Aptly led by
yourself. No, so you've got the words in the agenda. You've also got the words on the boards in front of you if you wish to join in. So first, I have the karakia to close the meeting, and then the karakia for Kai, and lunch will be available right after the meeting. Kia uru mai, ora, o kaha, o maia, ki ranga, ki aro, ki roto, ki waho, rere o, mai mai. Karakia for Kai, nau mai e na ua, o te wawa, o te nakina, o te waitai, o te waimori, nā tāne, nā rongo, nā tangaroa, nā maru. Ko ranganui e tu I hone, ko papatua nuku, ko te waki ne, nuru o witi wakamawa kia tēnā, hui, tai.